The courthouse hallway buzzed with low murmurs and squeaking shoes. Dr. Amara Cole walked quietly, clutching a simple black folder, dressed like any other citizen. No entourage, no security, just a woman who looked ordinary. As she approached the security checkpoint, Officer Brad Miller barely glanced up. "Ma'am, you can't go through here," he barked, waving dismissively. Amara calmly showed her ID. "I'm here for the 9 a.m. disciplinary hearing. Brad snatched the ID, didn't read it, just smirked. "You people think you can go anywhere." He pushed the tray toward her, so hard that her folder slipped, papers scattering. When she instinctively stepped past the line to grab them, his hand shot out. "Didn't you hear me?" he snapped. In one rough motion, he shoved her back, and her shoulder hit the cold wall. Gasps echoed. Someone pulled out a phone. Amara swallowed the pain, eyes burning, not just from the impact, but from the humiliation. In that moment, he saw only a woman he could push around. He had no idea who he'd just put his hands on. Pain shot down Amara's arm, but she forced her voice to stay steady. "Officer, that was unnecessary." Brad stepped closer, towering over her. "What's unnecessary is you people always thinking the rules don't apply," he muttered, low enough to sound private, loud enough for others to hear. An older black woman nearby whispered, "Leave her alone," but he shot her a warning look. Brad waved the fallen ID in her face. "What are you anyway? A blogger? Somebody's baby mama here to make noise?" Amara's jaw tightened. "I am scheduled to be inside that courtroom." He snorted. "Not through this hallway. Go around like everybody else, and if you cause a scene, I will have you removed." Around them, the crowd shifted uncomfortably. A young man with braids quietly filmed. Amara stooped to gather her papers with one hand, her shoulder throbbing. She could feel eyes on her, pity, rage, helplessness. She could end this right here with one sentence, but she didn't. Not yet. Some battles aren't won in hallways. They're won on the record. Amara moved slowly toward the alternate entrance Brad had pointed to. Each step felt heavier, but her face stayed composed. Years of dealing with power-drunk men had trained her muscles to hide the hurt. Behind her, the murmurs swelled. "That was messed up. She showed him ID. Did you get it on camera?" The young man with braids nodded, clutching his phone like evidence. "Yeah, from when he shoved her." The older black woman shook her head. "They won't do anything. They never do." Amara paused at the door, hearing those words. They never do. She took a slow breath. Today was supposed to be about another officer, another complaint, another story of misunderstanding and procedure. Now, there were two. She straightened her blazer, tucked the pain deep inside her ribs, and pushed the heavy door open. If Brad thought the hallway was the end of their interaction, he was about to learn how small this hallway really was compared to the room she'd been invited to sit in. The courtroom felt colder than the hallway. Dark wooden benches, polished railings, and the hum of whispered conversations pressed against Amara's ears as she walked in. No one looked twice at her. To them, she was just another observer. At the front, a panel of 3 officials sat behind a long desk, quietly flipping through files. This was no criminal trial. It was a disciplinary hearing. Officer Conduct Review. On the far side, Amara spotted him again. Brad, standing relaxed beside another officer, was laughing about something on a phone screen. He didn't even glance her way. Her name wasn't on the list projected on the screen yet. That was intentional. Her role today was to listen, assess, and, if necessary, testify. But now, necessary had turned personal. She slid into a seat near the front, cradling her sore shoulder. A clerk passed, eyes drifting to the slight red mark on her skin, peeking from under her collar. "You okay, ma'am?" they whispered. "I will be," Amara replied. "Are they already recording?" The clerk nodded. "Yes, everything from now on is on the record." Amara exhaled. Good. That was all she needed. The chair of the panel tapped the microphone. "We are here to review complaints filed against Officer Brad Miller of the Metro Police Department." Brad straightened his uniform, suddenly serious. He walked to the stand with the practiced stroll of a man used to being respected. "Officer Miller," the chair began, "you are accused of using excessive force during a routine stop last month. How do you respond?" Brad put on a face Amara had seen 1,000 times in case files. Polite, controlled, and perfectly rehearsed. "With respect, sir," he said, voice smooth, "I have always followed protocol. I treat every citizen the same, regardless of race or background." Amara nearly laughed. The bruise on her shoulder pulsed in disagreement. He continued, "If anyone felt disrespected, that was never my intention. The streets are dangerous. Sometimes we have to act fast." A slideshow of still images from past incidents appeared on the screen behind him. Grainy footage, confusing angles. Nothing as clear as what happened in the hallway. Not yet. Amara's fingers brushed the phone in her pocket. The email she'd received last night flashed in her mind. "We're trusting you with this, Dr. Cole." Today wasn't just about him. It was about every hallway he thought no one was watching. Halfway through the hearing, an official leaned over to whisper to the panel chair. A white envelope slid discreetly across the desk, marked with a federal seal Amara knew very well. The chair cleared his throat. "Before we proceed further, we have been informed that a special observer has joined us." Brad shifted, confused. The chair scanned the room. "Dr. Amara Cole, would you please approach the front?" Every head turned. The same woman Brad had just slammed in the hallway stood slowly. The older black woman from outside peered in through the back door, eyes wide. Amara's steps were calm, measured. She could feel Brad's stare burning into her now, trying to place where he'd seen her. When she reached the front row, the clerk stepped aside. The chair nodded respectfully. "Thank you for being here, doctor. Your reports will be vital to our decision." Brad squinted. "Doctor?" he muttered under his breath. For the first time, Amara met his eyes head-on. No flinch. No fear. He still didn't know, but the ground beneath his career had already started to crack. Amara sat in a special seat reserved for federal observers, just to the side of the panel. From here, she could see everything. The slight tremor in Brad's hands, the restless tapping of a lawyer's pen, the way the clerk kept glancing at the red mark on her shoulder. The chair leaned in. "Dr. Cole, as lead investigator for the Federal Civil Rights Oversight Committee, you've reviewed Officer Miller's previous complaints, correct?" Brad's head snapped toward her. I'm sorry, federal what?" Amara didn't answer him. Her eyes remained on the chair. "Yes, I've reviewed all 8 prior complaints." A murmur rippled through the room. 8. Brad's mouth fell open. "Those were all cleared," he protested. "All misunderstandings." Amara's voice was calm. "Cleared by people who accepted your word against citizens who didn't have cameras, Officer Miller." His face flushed. The hallway flashed in his mind. Her ID, the shove, the phone in the boy's hand. A bead of sweat gathered at his temple. The hearing had shifted. This was no longer a routine defense. This was an audit of his character. The chair gestured for Brad to return to the microphone. Officer Miller, Dr. Cole has indicated there were prior concerns about your treatment of citizens. Do you stand by your earlier statement? You treat everyone the same. Brad swallowed. His eyes darted to Amara, then back to the chair. Yes, sir. I've never targeted anyone. I don't see color. I just see behavior. Amara tilted her head slightly, almost pitying him. May I ask a question? She said softly. The chair nodded. Go ahead, doctor. She turned to Brad. This morning, Officer Miller, do you recall an interaction at the security checkpoint? His shoulders tensed. I see a lot of people every day, including a black woman you shoved into a wall for stepping past a line. Gasps filled the room. The older woman in the back clasped her hands over her mouth. Brad's voice rose. She ignored an order. I used minimal force. It was standard procedure. Amara's gaze didn't move. And would you say your treatment of her was respectful? On the record, on tape, in front of every official in the room, he answered, yes. Amara nodded slowly. Thank you for clarifying that on record, officer. She reached into her blazer and pulled out her phone. With the panel's permission, I'd like to submit a piece of evidence that occurred just before this hearing. The chair gestured to the clerk. Go ahead. Amara beckoned to the young man with braids at the back. He walked forward, palms sweaty but determined, handing over his phone. Within seconds, the big screen behind Brad lit up, not with old grainy footage, but crystal clear video. There he was, Brad on screen, shoving Amara against the wall, mocking her, dismissing her ID, telling her, you people think you can go anywhere. The room went dead silent. The sound of her shoulder hitting the wall echoed in painful clarity. Brad stared up at his own actions, mouth open. That's taken out of context, he stammered. Amara's voice came out steady. The context is your character, officer. No one was confused anymore, not about what he'd done. The only question left was what would be done about it. Brad's lawyer scrambled to his feet. This is highly irregular, he protested. Was proper chain of custody followed? The chair raised a hand. Counsel, what we just saw aligns with the pattern in Dr. Cole's report, a pattern of disrespect and biased aggression. Brad's breathing grew shallow. I was doing my job, he said, louder now. You don't know what it's like out there. People push. They test boundaries. Amara's calm voice cut through his panic. You know what the hardest thing is, officer? Watching people with power treat basic respect like it's a favor. He glared at her. You came in here ready to destroy me. She shook her head. No, I came here ready to review evidence. You added today's exhibit all by yourself. Laughter didn't come. No one found it funny. Outside, the hallway felt like a different world. Inside, Brad's armor of authority, uniform, and practiced lines had begun to crumble. For the first time, he truly looked small, a man standing alone in front of the consequences he'd never believed would arrive. The chair looked to Amara. Dr. Cole, given what you've seen and what we've reviewed, do you believe this is an isolated incident? She didn't rush her answer. She let the silence press on everyone's chest for a few seconds. No, she finally said. I believe Officer Miller has grown comfortable. Comfortable with fear. Comfortable with control. Comfortable with the belief that some people won't be believed over him. Brad's voice cracked. That's not fair. Amara leaned slightly forward. Officer, when you shoved me against that wall, what did you see? He frowned. What? In your mind, she repeated quietly. Who was I? When you looked at my skin, my clothes, my face, what story did you tell yourself about me? The room held its breath. Brad's gaze darted around, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Just another angry woman making trouble? There it was, spoken out loud, on record. Sometimes the sharpest blade is simply forcing someone to say their truth in front of witnesses. The chair sat back, eyes heavy. Dr. Cole, do you have any final statement before we recess to deliberate? This was the moment. Amara rose slowly, the pain in her shoulder a quiet reminder of why she was here. She looked at Brad, not with hatred, but with the steady gaze of someone done being small. Yes, she said. One sentence. Every whisper died. Even the air seemed to pause. She turned slightly so her voice would carry to every corner of the room. For the record, she said clearly, I am the federal official assigned to decide whether this man wears a badge next month. The words hit harder than any shove. Brad's face drained of color. His mouth worked soundlessly. She continued, calm and final. And based on the evidence, including his behavior toward me this morning, I will be recommending his immediate suspension, mandatory investigation, and removal from duty. The room exploded in sound. Gasps, murmurs, the scrape of chairs. His career didn't end with shouting or a fight. It ended with one quiet recorded sentence. Security officers moved almost instantly, not at Amara this time, but toward Brad. Officer Miller, the chair announced, voice firm, effective immediately, you are suspended pending full federal review. You will surrender your badge and service weapon before leaving this building. Brad shook his head in disbelief. You can't do this. You can't. I've given my whole life to this job. Amara watched as his hand trembled, unclipping the badge he'd once worn like armor. This isn't about erasing your service, she said quietly. It's about facing the parts of it that broke people instead of protecting them. The young man with braids stood taller, phone still in hand. The older woman wiped tears from her eyes. For once, the hallway justice so many had begged for had finally reached the courtroom. Brad placed his badge on the desk. In that small, metallic clink, years of unchecked behavior finally met a boundary he couldn't push past. When the hearing adjourned, people poured into the hallway, buzzing with shock and relief. The same space where Amada had been shoved now felt different. The older woman hurried to her. I didn't know you were... Amada smiled gently. You didn't have to know. You spoke up anyway. That matters. The young man with braids approached, cheeks flushed. Thank you for using the video. I was scared it wouldn't do anything. Amada looked him straight in the eyes. You did the bravest thing. You hit record when it felt useless. That's how stories change. Down the hall, Brad walked out with no badge, no swagger. Just a man in a uniform that no longer meant what it used to. For a moment, his eyes met Amada's again. There was no shouting now, only the hollow awareness that he had written this ending himself. The wall behind her was the same cold marble, but the power in front of it had shifted. Outside, the city moved as if nothing had happened. Cars honked, pigeons fought over crumbs, people checked their phones. Life never pauses for justice. It just absorbs it quietly and moves on. Amara stood on the courthouse steps, feeling the weight slowly lift from her chest. The bruise on her shoulder would fade, but what happened on record today would remain. She thought of every person ever told, "They'll never believe you." Every hallway with no cameras, every shove, every insult, every "you people." Sometimes justice is loud. Sirens, protests, headlines. But sometimes it's a calm black woman in a simple blazer choosing not to explode in the hallway, but to speak at the microphone. As she walked down the steps, the older woman called out, "God bless you, doctor." Amara smiled. "He already did," she replied softly. "He gave me a voice and a system that, today at least, listened." For anyone watching this story, one truth stands out. Power is not just in the badge, or the uniform, or the title. Sometimes, the real power is in one sentence spoken at the right time.